Watch how Vice President J.D. Vance masterfully dismantled a 3-4-year political career. He used the politician's own words and public records during one single, devastating Senate hearing. It took just 2 addresses and 11 seconds of silence to bring the room to a standstill. In poker, that is called a tell. But in politics, that is pure fear. We are not bad people. Those were the words of United States Congresswoman Maxine Waters when she spoke to the Los Angeles Times back in 2004. Reporters had asked her a direct question. Why did her family receive over $1 million in payments connected to her political campaigns? To which she simply replied, "We are not bad people." Fast forward 22 years to a Thursday morning in the United States Senate. Vice President J.D. Vance read that exact quote back to her on live television. After reading 2 distinct addresses and citing 20 years of Federal Election Commission filings, he turned his attention to her daughter. Sitting under oath at the witness table, while C-SPAN cameras recorded everything, she was asked to explain exactly where $1.2 million of campaign money went. Maxine Waters had no answer, and neither did her daughter. Senator Elizabeth Warren, who is the leading Democratic voice on banking oversight, tried desperately to intervene. She objected 3 times. She moved to recess, and she challenged the jurisdiction. Yet, she lost every single time. The system was not rigged against them. The FEC filings were simply real. This is the story of how a 6-word quote ended a 3-4-year career in just one morning. If you believe the American people deserve to know where their campaign donations actually go, hit that like button, because every single dollar is about to be read out loud. The hearing was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the Senate Committee on Banking, located in room 538 of the Dirksen Senate Office Building. Chairman Tim Scott, a Republican from South Carolina, presided over the session. He sat alongside the ranking member, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts. The subject was campaign finance compliance. It was given a deliberately boring title, as Senate hearings always are. Committee staffers understand this tactic, knowing that a boring title keeps unwanted attention away. It is a strategy that works flawlessly until the cameras start rolling, and by then, it is far too late to leave. 2 witnesses were called to the stand. The first witness was Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She represented California's 43rd Congressional District and served as the former chair of the House Financial Services Committee. Currently serving her 17th term, she had been subpoenaed. She did not attend voluntarily. Her legal team had fought for 3 weeks to quash the subpoena. They argued jurisdiction, claiming the Senate Banking Committee lacked the authority to compel a House member. However, Chairman Scott overruled them. He cited TARP oversight and the specific connection to One United Bank. The second witness, scheduled for the afternoon panel, was Karen Waters. As the Congresswoman's daughter, she operated Progressive Connections. This was a political consulting firm that had received over $1.2 million from her mother's campaigns starting in 2003. Although she was also subpoenaed and tried to block her appearance, her efforts failed. While Vice President J.D. Vance did not chair the hearing, he holds a constitutional role under Article 1. As the President of the Senate, this gives him the right to attend any proceeding. He sat in the vice presidential chair, elevated on the dais next to Chairman Scott. He arrived at 9:15. He brought nothing but one manila folder and an old Los Angeles Times newspaper from the 22nd of August, 2004. His staff had retrieved it from the Library of Congress. Maxine Waters walked into room 538 at 9:54. She was accompanied by Senator Elizabeth Warren on her left and Senator Chris Van Hollen on her right. 3 Democratic House members sat in the audience gallery right behind the witness table to show solidarity. The message was clear. The Democratic Party intended to fight. Wearing her power outfit, a red jacket, and a black dress that she wore to every major confrontation of her career, Waters did not look at the dais. She did not look at Tim Scott or J.D. Vance. She simply sat down, arranged her papers, adjusted her microphone, and waited. At 10:03, Chairman Tim Scott called the hearing to order with a brief opening statement. After reading the jurisdiction and noting the witnesses, he reminded everyone about the oath. Then, he recognized the witness for an opening statement. Maxine Waters did not sit. She never sat for opening statements. Standing was her signature weapon, and a physical assertion that she would not be made small. Placing both hands on the table, she looked directly into the C-SPAN camera. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want the record to reflect my protest regarding this subpoena. It is an abuse of authority that my counsel advised me to challenge in federal court, but I am here because Maxine Waters does not run from a fight. I have never run. I have been in this Congress for 34 years, facing down presidents, speakers, and every Republican trying to silence a black woman. Let me tell the American people the truth. This hearing is not about banking oversight or campaign finance. It is rather about a Republican Party that cannot win on policy, ideas, or the trust of the American people. Instead, they subpoena an 7-year-old black woman and put her on trial for the offense of serving her community. Meanwhile, the Vice President of the United States sits on that dais as a man who wrote a book blaming poor people for being poor. He took $15 million from a Silicon Valley billionaire to buy a Senate seat, and he has never walked 1 block in South Central Los Angeles. Not 1 block. Yet, he lectures me about the people I served long before he was born. Mr. Chairman, I will answer your questions. But I want Americans to understand that this room is a place of persecution, and I will not be persecuted in silence. Reclaiming my time. With that, she sat down. The House members in the gallery applauded. Chairman Scott tapped his gavel, stating, "The audience will refrain from demonstrations." Meanwhile, Senator Warren wrote on her legal pad and gave a firm nod that the cameras caught. Maxine Waters had just called the Vice President a man who blames the poor and bought his seat on national television, under oath, ending with her famous catchphrase, comment, "Reclaiming my time below," because that phrase is about to return in a way she never expected. Chairman Scott spoke next. The chair thanks the witness and will exercise his right to yield a portion of my time to the President of the Senate, Vice President Vance. You have 15 minutes. J.D. Vance leaned forward without standing, or raising his voice, speaking instead with the measured cadence of a Marine delivering a briefing. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Congresswoman, even though I know you prefer not to be here. I want to start with something simple. I am going to read 2 addresses without editorializing, and then I will ask a question. Address number 1. 549 South Lucerne Boulevard, in Windsor Square, Hancock Park, Los Angeles. It is a 6,000-square-foot single-family residence with 4 bedrooms. The neighborhood sits near the Wilshire Country Club, between West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. It boasts a median household income of $147,000 a year. The property was purchased in 2004, and the estimated market value is between $4 and $6 million. This is your home, Congresswoman. Is that correct? Waters answered defensively, "Mr. Vice President, My residential address is not relevant, Vance interrupted smoothly. Congresswoman, is 549 South Lucerne Boulevard your home? Yes or no? Yes, Waters said. Thank you, Vance continued. Address number 2 will be a general location to protect the privacy of the residents. East 103rd Street, in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. This street is located in your congressional district, California's 43rd. The median household income is $22,000 a year. The violent crime rate is 3 times the national average. The home ownership rate is 31%, and the poverty rate is 28%. You have represented this district since 1991, which is 34 years. Your home is in Hancock Park, with a median income of $147,000, while your district is Watts and South Central, with a median income of $22,000. Those are 2 addresses, in the same city, for the same congresswoman, separated by $125,000 a year. I have a question. In 34 years of representing the second address, have you ever lived at the second address? Waters replied, I am not required by the Constitution to live in my district. The Constitution requires I be an inhabitant of the state, which I am. Vance stated, I did not ask about the Constitution. I asked whether you have ever lived in your district. Have you? Waters pushed back. I have served my district faithfully for 34. Vance cut in. The question was not about your service, but about your address. Have you ever lived in the district you represent? Yes or no? Silence filled the room. 3 seconds passed. Before she finally answered, I live in Los Angeles, Mr. Vice President. Yes, Congresswoman. You live in the part of Los Angeles with a $147,000 median income, while your constituents live in the part with a $22,000 median income, and I want that. On the record. Senator Elizabeth Warren quickly raised her hand. Point of order, Warren said. A residential address is not within the jurisdiction of this committee, and I object to this line of questioning. Vance spoke without turning. Senator Warren, I will connect the address to the banking record in 90 seconds, so I ask for your patience. Warren persisted. The chair should rule on relevance before the vice president continues. Chairman Scott responded, The objection is noted, but the chair will allow the vice president to proceed and will rule on relevance if the connection is absent. Please continue. Warren sat back, knowing she had used the rules, but it was not enough. J.D. Vance read 2 addresses out loud on C-SPAN, one near Beverly Hills and the other in Watts, $125,000 apart, and Maxine Waters could not confirm she had ever lived in the district she represented. Comment 2 addresses below. Because those 2 zip codes are about to become famous, as Vance opened the manila folder. The first document had a yellow tab that read, 1 United. Congresswoman Waters, in 2008 you served on the House Financial Services Committee. Is that correct? Vance asked. Yes, she said. Your husband, Mr. Sidney Williams, was a stockholder in 1 United Bank, which is a minority-owned bank in Boston, with branches in Los Angeles and Miami. Mr. Williams served on the board of directors from 2004 to 2008. Is that correct? Waters answered defensively, My husband's business dealings are his own. This is public record, Vance noted. His board service and stock ownership are disclosed in your financial statements. So, is the information correct? Yes. Waters confirmed. In September of 2008, when the financial crisis hit, you contacted the Treasury Department to arrange a meeting. Treasury officials met with the National Bankers Association. The discussion centered on One United Bank, and within weeks, One United received $12 million in TARP bailout funds. Is that correct? The meeting was about all minority-owned banks, Waters replied. The Office of Congressional Ethics investigated, and their public report on the House Ethics Committee website found substantial reason to believe you violated House ethics rules. It stated you used your position to benefit a bank where your husband held stock. So, is that finding in the report? I was cleared of all charges when the Ethics Committee voted 10-0, Waters stated. I did not ask whether you were cleared. I asked whether the OCE found substantial reason to believe you violated rules. That finding is on page 4. Yes or no? The finding was made, and then I was cleared, she admitted. Thank you, Vance said. You were cleared after a 3-year investigation, and I accept that finding. But I want the American people to understand the timeline. In 2008, people at the second address, the people in Watts and in your district, lost their homes in a financial crisis. Meanwhile, your husband was a stockholder in a bank that received $12 million in taxpayer bailout money because you arranged the meeting. You were cleared by the Ethics Committee. But the people who lost their homes were not cleared. They were cleared out of their houses. Senator Warren raised her hand again. The One United matter was fully investigated, and the Congresswoman was cleared. Relitigating a closed case is an abuse of time and an insult to the witness. Vance replied, Senator Warren, you are correct that she was cleared, but I am reading the OCE report, which remains on the public record. Would you like me to stop reading public government documents? Warren did not answer, knowing she could not block public records. $12 million in bailout money went to a bank where Maxine Waters' husband held stock, while her district lost their homes. And, although she was cleared after 3 years, her constituents were evicted. Subscribe right now, because you need to follow this investigation as the next number gets even worse. Moving past the $12 million, $1.2 million went directly to her daughter. Vance turned to the next tab, which read, Karen Waters FEC. I want to move to a separate matter involving your daughter, Karen Waters, and her company, Progressive Connections. Federal Election Commission filings are public, and your campaign committee, Citizens for Waters, paid Progressive Connections a combined total of over $1.2 million since 2003. Is that figure correct? My daughter provides professional services to my campaign, Waters stated. I did not ask about the services. I asked about the dollar amount. Is $1.2 million correct? The FEC filings are in front of me. They are in front of anyone who visits fec.gov, Vance added. The amount sounds correct. Waters relented. Thank you. I will walk through specific cycles. During the 2020 election cycle, your campaign paid Karen Waters $240,000. A source confirmed by FEC filings, reported by the Washington Free Beacon, and confirmed by Fox News Digital. During the 2022 cycle, your campaign paid her $192,000, and in 2021 alone, she received $81,650 in 12 installments. The filings describe this as slate mailer management fees, which are common in California state politics. However, you are the only federal politician in the United States who operates a slate mailer system. Other candidates, including Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, and Dianne Feinstein, actually paid your campaign for the privilege of appearing on your mailers. Your daughter managed the operation, and your daughter got paid. In 2004, The Los Angeles Times investigated your family's financial relationship with your campaign, finding your family received over $1 million over 8 years. When the Times asked you to explain, you gave an answer that I will quote from the 22nd of August 2004. He picked up the original, yellowed, two-year-old newspaper and held it up to the cameras. You said, "They do their business, and I do mine. We are not bad people. Congresswoman, nobody called you bad people. I am reading FEC filings, and the FEC filings do not use the word bad. They use dollar amounts, and those amounts say 1.2 million. Tim Scott leaned into his microphone. Point of personal privilege. The chairman is recognized, Vance said. Tim Scott spoke in his usual calm voice, grounded by his background of having a mother who worked 6-hour days as a nursing assistant to raise 2 boys alone in South Carolina. I want to put one number in context. The median household income in Congresswoman Waters' district is $22,000 a year. Her daughter received $240,000 in the 2020 cycle alone, which equates to 10.9 years of her constituents' median income. Within a single election cycle, I do not have a question. I just want that number. On the record. $1.2 million went to her daughter from campaign donors, while the people she represents make $22,000 a year. Tim Scott did the math, showing her daughter made 11 years of median income in one cycle. Share this video right now and send it to one person, because the more people who hear these numbers, the harder it becomes for politicians to repeat this. Maxine Waters did not reach her position by being soft. She survived 34 years by fighting back, having stared down Newt Gingrich, Bill O'Reilly, and Donald Trump, so she would not crumble now. When Chairman Scott recognized her for a response, she stood up with force. Mr. Vice President, you want to talk about my daughter? Let's talk about yours. You took $15 million from Peter Thiel, a Silicon Valley billionaire, to run for the Senate. You worked at Mithril Capital, founded Naria Capital, and have a net worth of $11 million. You married a woman who clerked for the Chief Justice. And you wrote a book about your grandmother. You sold the movie rights to Ron Howard, thereby monetizing your family and selling your grandmother's pain to Hollywood to buy a political career with the profits. Do not sit in that chair and lecture me about family money. She turned directly to the camera. My daughter has worked on my campaigns for 20 years, and every payment is documented, legal, and reviewed by the FEC, which never found a violation. I have served South Central Los Angeles for 34 years, bringing federal dollars to my district, fighting for affordable housing, fair lending, the Community Reinvestment Act, and protecting working families from predatory banks. I did all of this while the Republican Party tried to destroy everything I built. You want to read 2 addresses? Let me give you a third. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the address of a convicted individual and the most corrupt president in American history. The man you serve represents where corruption truly lives, Mr. Vice President, not on South Lucerne Boulevard. Senator Warren spoke from the dais, adding, I associate myself with the witness's remarks, and I want to add to the record that the Vice President's nonprofit organization, Our Ohio Renewal, was established in 2016 to fight the opioid crisis. NPR reported the organization spent more money on consultants than on treatment programs, before quietly closing, and that reporting is public. If payments to associates constitute wrongdoing, the Vice President fails his own standard because his nonprofit failed his community, and he used that failure to write a book and launch an $1 million political career. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Waters has served her district for 34 years, by passing legislation, chairing committees, and fighting for red-lined communities. Since the Vice President has served in elected office for only 3 years, the witness's record speaks louder than the manila folder. The House members in the gallery applauded, until Chairman Scott tapped his gavel, warning, "The audience will refrain from demonstrations." Senator Van Hollen spoke immediately. "I want to add a point to the record. The slate mailer payments are legal, documented, and disclosed on FEC filings that were reviewed by the FEC. Since the Vice President has not alleged any law was broken, but merely describes legal expenditures in a tone designed to sound criminal. This is political theater. I move for a 5-minute recess." Chairman Scott replied, "A motion to recess has been made, and the committee will vote." The vote predictably fell on party lines. Republicans voted no, and Democrats voted yes. The motion to recess is denied, and the hearing will continue. Warren closed her eyes, and Van Hollen put down his pen, realizing they had deployed every procedural tool: objections, motions, speeches, and votes. But it was not enough. The FEC filings were real, and you simply cannot recess a fact. J.D. Vance waited for the room to settle, pausing until Warren stopped writing, and the murmurs faded into the quiet ventilation hum. Not looking defensive or angry, he looked like a man who fully expected this. "Congresswoman, Senator Warren, and Senator Van Hollen, thank you, because everything you just said about me is accurate in every word. I took Peter Thiel's money, worked at Mithril Capital, founded Narya Capital, and have a net worth of $11 million. I married a woman who clerked for the Chief Justice. I wrote a book about my grandmother that Ron Howard made into a movie with Glenn Close. And I admit our Ohio renewal spent too much money on consultants instead of the community. NPR's reporting was accurate regarding the nonprofit's closure. And I take full responsibility for that failure as one of the real regrets of my life. All of that is true, every single word, and I do not deny any of it. I will not deny it under oath, while my wife is watching this hearing. But I want to say something to the American people. I grew up in Middletown, Ohio, which has a population of 48,000, where my mother struggled with banned substances, and my grandmother raised me with a loaded revolver under her pillow. The men drank too much, so the women learned to protect their children, which led me to join the Marine Corps at 18. I joined because I did not have another option, allowing me to go to Ohio State on the GI Bill, attend Yale Law School, and eventually move to San Francisco and Washington. I made money. I wrote a book. I became a senator and became vice president. However, I was always honest about leaving Middletown, Ohio, never telling the people there that I still lived on their street, or pretending my address was the same as theirs. When I went back as a visitor. I wrote about it, ensuring everyone in Middletown knows exactly where J.D. Vance lives and how much money I have. Because I told them, that is the fundamental difference between us. Congresswoman, I left my town and admitted it, while you left your district and pretended you didn't. Your name has been on the ballot for 34 years, making your voters believe you fight for them from inside. But your actual address is 549 South Lucerne Boulevard in Hancock Park, near the Wilshire Country Club. The median income there is $147,000 a year, compared to your constituents' $22,000. I left Middletown and admitted it, but you left South Central and pretended you stayed, making the $1.2 million to your daughter. The undeniable receipt. The silence in Dirksen 538 lasted 6 seconds. As Senator Warren did not object, and Senator Van Hollen did not move, there was nothing to object to. He had read 2 addresses and done the subtraction, showing he left and admitted it, while she left and pretended she didn't. Hit that like button again, as YouTube counts it, because the next part of this hearing gets worse. J.D. Vance is about to read Maxine Waters' words about getting confrontational, followed by a federal judge's response. Vance turned to the next tab, which read, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, April 2021. Congresswoman Waters. I want to move to a separate matter regarding your travel to Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. On the 17th of April, 2021, you did not represent Minnesota, yet you traveled there from California's 43rd District. During the trial of Derek Chauvin, a former police officer charged in the fatal incident of George Floyd, you spoke to a crowd of protesters, and when a reporter asked what should happen if Chauvin was found not guilty, you answered on camera, in a nationwide broadcast. We've got to stay on the street. We've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational, and we've got to make sure they know we mean business. Is that an accurate quote? I was speaking about peaceful confrontation, Waters began. Is that an accurate quote? Yes or no? Vance pressed. Those are my words, and I stand by them, she affirmed. Thank you. The presiding judge, Peter Cahill, addressed your comments from the bench and called your remarks abhorrent. He stated they could give the defense grounds to appeal and potentially cause the whole trial to be overturned. A sitting federal judge explicitly said, your words could overturn a fatal incident conviction that millions of Americans had waited for, while cities braced for the verdict. A judge said, your words could undo it all. Even though they were spoken in a state you do not represent, to a crowd you had no authority over. Yet you responded on CNN by calling the judge way off track, a federal judge with 30 years of experience, presiding over the most important criminal trial in America. And you said he was off track for applying the law. In January 2021, the Democratic Party accused President Trump of inciting violence at the Capitol, applying the standard that words spoken to a crowd can constitute incitement. This is the exact same standard Judge Cahill applied to your words. So, if telling a crowd to march is incitement, what is telling a crowd to get more confrontational before a major verdict? Senator Warren interjected. The House declined to censure her, so this is settled. The House declined to censure her because the Democratic majority blocked the vote, with 216 Democrats voting to table the resolution as a form of protection rather than adjudication. The vote record is public. So would you like me to read it? Vance responded. Warren did not respond. By telling a crowd to get more confrontational, a judge called it abhorrent, and Waters called the judge off track. Comment the word confrontational below, because those words are now part of the permanent record. Chairman Scott spoke up. The chair will call the second witness panel. So, Miss Karen Waters, please approach the table. As the room shifted, Maxine Waters moved to the front row of the audience gallery, sitting protectively between the House members. Karen Waters, who was 58 years old, walked to the witness table. Wearing a dark gray suit, an attorney accompanied her and sat off camera, as she had been on the witness list for 72 hours. The clerk administered the oath. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give will be the truth? I do, she answered. Miss Waters, you have 5 minutes for a prepared statement, Chairman Scott instructed. Karen Waters read from a paper with a controlled voice, projecting the aura of a professional consultant. Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Karen Waters, and I own Progressive Connections, a political consulting firm in Los Angeles. I provided slate mailer management services and coordinated get-out-the-vote efforts for my mother's campaign since 2003. Slate mailers are a legal practice in California, and my company operated in full compliance with FEC regulations. So, I am happy to answer questions. Thank you, Miss Waters. The chair yields to Vice President Vance. Vance spoke quietly and asked his questions methodically, utilizing a focused, close-ended approach. Miss Waters, your mother's campaign paid you and your company $1.2 million since 2003. Is that figure correct? That is in the range of public reports, she replied carefully. During the 2020 election cycle, your mother's campaign paid you $240,000, correct? That sounds correct. During the 2022 cycle, it was $192,000, correct? Approximately. Your mother's campaign is the only federal campaign in the United States operating a slate mailer system. Is that correct? Slate mailers are common at the state level, she deflected. At the federal level, your mother's campaign is the only one. Is that correct? I believe so. Miss Waters, in the 2020 cycle, the median household income in your mother's district was $22,000. You received $240,000 from her campaign in that same cycle, which amounts to 10.9 years of her constituents' median income, gathered from donated dollars, in a single election cycle. I want the American people to understand that number. A family in Watts, whom your mother has represented for 34 years, would have to work for nearly 11 years, without paying for rent, food, or medicine, just to earn what you received in one cycle. You earned it for managing a mailer operation no other federal politician uses, while the family at the second address struggled. They donated to your mother's campaign to fight for them, but instead, a portion of that money went to the first address in Hancock Park to benefit you. Karen Waters looked directly at her attorney, but the attorney did not speak. Vance stated, I do not have a follow-up question. I just want that math on the record. A voice abruptly rang out from the front row of the gallery. Mr. Chairman, you will not interrogate my daughter like this. This is a disgrace and a witch hunt, and I am reclaiming my time. Maxine Waters stood in the audience gallery, pointing at the dais. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Reclaiming my time. Chairman Tim Scott looked at her. Without raising his voice or banging his gavel, he spoke with the quiet authority of a man who never lost control of a hearing room. Congresswoman Waters, you are no longer on the witness panel and are currently seated in the audience gallery. You do not have time to reclaim, because the chair controls the time during witness testimony, and the audience will refrain from interruption. He tapped the gavel to finalize the point. Reclaiming my time was the catchphrase that defined her career, featured on T-shirts and coffee mugs, but now it was turned against her by the rules, and the chair, Maxine Waters, stood for 3 more seconds before she sat down, and she did not speak again. You do not have time to reclaim. Those were the 8 words from Chairman Tim Scott that turned her famous catchphrase into a devastating moment, leaving her silenced in the audience, while her daughter sat at the witness table under oath, as the $1.2 million sat exposed on the public record. Mr. Vice President, you have 3 minutes remaining, Chairman Scott advised. I have one final question, Vance began. This is not for Miss Karen Waters, but for Congresswoman Waters. And since she is no longer on the panel, I will address it to the record, so she can choose to answer from the gallery or not. He set down the manila folder and calmly folded his hands. Congresswoman Waters, you represented South Central Los Angeles for 34 years, while chairing the Financial Services Committee as a powerful member of Congress for 3 decades. In those 34 years, the poverty rate has not decreased. The violent crime rate has not decreased. The homeownership rate has not increased. And the median household income remains $22,000. which is among the lowest in the United States. In those same 34 years, your family received over $1 million from your campaign. You live in a $6 million mansion in a wealthy neighborhood, and your husband's bank received $12 million in bailout money. You traveled to Minnesota to tell protesters to get more confrontational. So I have one simple question for you, Congresswoman. In 34 years of representing South Central Los Angeles, can you name one thing in your district that has gotten better? The question landed with a visible ripple, as Maxine Waters sat in the front row, with her hands securely in her lap. Her mouth remained closed through 1 second, 2 seconds, and ultimately 11 agonizing seconds of silence on C-SPAN. She was the most outspoken woman in Congress, who had never lacked words in 34 years, yet now she could not think of a single thing to say. She did not answer. J.D. Vance waited the full 11 seconds, without attempting to fill the silence, letting the moment sit heavily in the room. Then he spoke. Let the record reflect. The witness did not respond. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Chairman Tim Scott tapped his gavel, announcing, all testimony and documents will be entered into the record, and this hearing is officially adjourned. The gavel fell with finality. In those 11 seconds of silence, J.D. Vance asked her to name one thing that got better in 34 years, and she simply could not do it. Share this moment and send it to every American who genuinely wonders what their representative actually does. Senator Elizabeth Warren sat alone at her desk later that afternoon, reflecting on how she had objected 3 times, challenged jurisdiction, and deployed everything the minority rules allowed. It was not enough, and when her chief of staff entered to ask, Senator, can I get you anything? Warren had her answer ready. Taking off her glasses, Warren stated, the FEC filings are real. Every address he read is real, and every dollar amount is verifiable, because you can't object to a zip code, and you certainly can't overrule a fact. She immediately ordered a draft of a comprehensive campaign finance transparency bill. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance called his wife Usha, who asked, how was it? I read 2 addresses, he replied calmly. That's all it took? She questioned. That's all it ever takes. 2 addresses. And the truth, he affirmed. After going to the Senate floor to cast a routine vote, he drove home to his family. When his son asked what he did at work, he honestly answered, in Watts, an 83-year-old woman sat on her front porch, on a street she had lived on for 29 years. Having voted for Maxine Waters in every election since 1994, she had listened to her granddaughter and watched a specific video on YouTube. She watched the hearing on an iPad, while noticing the street light at the end of her block, which had been out for 3 months. She had called the city twice, but nobody ever came. Looking down the dark street, she thought deeply about a mansion near Beverly Hills and a congresswoman who had never knocked on her door. She went to bed, knowing tomorrow she had a doctor's appointment at a free clinic, which was the only clinic in her zip code. Since 549 South Lucerne Boulevard was 11 miles away, it honestly might as well have been on the moon. Within 72 hours, the House Ethics Committee announced a formal review to carefully examine the slate mailer payments. 3 California state politicians quickly requested refunds, while the FEC announced a comprehensive audit. Both Kamala Harris's office and Gavin Newsom's office declined to comment, and Karen Waters filed no new disbursement reports. Maxine Waters completed her 17th term, but pointedly did not seek an 18th, opting to give no farewell speech on the House floor. She released a short, 4-sentence written statement. Before retreating home to 549 South Lucerne Boulevard, she remained 11 miles from the district she had represented for 34 years. Every fact in this video is on the public record, including the FEC filings, the Los Angeles Times, the Office of Congressional Ethics Report, the Brooklyn Center remarks, and the census data. All of it is documented. Hit that like button one last time and comment the words 2 addresses below. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because another politician and another truth wait to be read out loud. God bless the woman on East 103rd Street who has waited 29 years for a street light and 34 years for a representative living in the same zip code. God bless Tim Scott's mother, who successfully raised a senator. And God bless Mama Vance, whose grandson just read 2 addresses on C-SPAN. The hearing is adjourned, and though the street light on East 103rd Street is still out, the truth is finally out there. Every dollar, every address, and every filing is secured on the public record. When a political system allows a fortune to be built on poverty, while streetlights remain broken, we must ask ourselves, are we electing leaders to serve our communities or simply funding their exit strategies?